Hello, everybody, and welcome to another impromptu show recommended by our good friend Luca, LSD Box, for British boxing prospects. Now, we put a little twist on the show. Jay's going to be joining us very shortly, but me and Liam, we're kicking things off here. But I'm simply put, and I'm going to answer the question myself as well. We're going to discuss a few of the prospects right now in British boxing. If we forget anybody or there's somebody you want to ask us about, anyone who's along with us, feel free to put in suggestions. We've got a little blanket list. Luca, how are you, mate? Thanks again for the idea, mate. Hopefully get some fighters over to us, mate, later on. If we probably won't run too long tonight, in fairness, but we've got a little blanket list of fighters that we're going to preview, and then basically we're just going to answer with whether we think they'll be a world champion or whether we don't think they'll be a world champion. But obviously we're going to look at careers and records and so on and so forth. But we discussed it earlier, myself and Liam, the criteria really, we've gone with 25 or under, and we're not looking at people who've just turned over. We're using a blanket of they've had, that they're well enough established as a pro, that's what we went off, isn't it, Liam? They're well enough established that they've had, evening Hawkan as well, thanks for joining us, mate. They've had enough fights to be established, but they're still classed as a prospect, Lee, and that's the best way to describe it, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the best way to describe it. So a few fighters you might expect us to talk about are going to miss out, but we sort of, otherwise we'd be here all night going over 20, 25 fights.
There's too many. Royston Barney-Smith's a good example, the guy who fought last weekend, maybe not quite in this list yet, maybe not quite established enough, but, the kid's going to go very, very far in the game. Yes, Pat, thank you very much for joining us, my friend. And hopefully we'll get another good evening of boxing talk. Absolutely. So we'll kick off now. While we wait for Jay, who will be with us fairly shortly, I'm going to ask Liam, first of all, someone we've talked about now. This is a female fighter with a very well-known surname. Somebody who is probably going to be elevated, Liam, I would say. There was talks at the Joshua Dubois fight anyway, because she's WBC interim champion of the world and IBO, so she's probably a different caveat to a few of the fighters we're going to talk about in a bit, but obviously I'm referring to Caroline Dubois. Now the reason we're starting here is because it's probably going to be a formality, this one, isn't it, Liam? But what you're looking at the minute, 10-0, 5 KOs, which in female boxing is a very high KO percentage. Hard hands must run in that family. Obviously we know Daniel's not short of a bit of punching power himself, is he? But yeah, should be a formality, shouldn't it, for Caroline Dubois? How far do you think she can go in the sport?
She could be. We had this conversation the other week, and I think it was either me or Jay that said this. Caroline Dubois has the potential to elevate female boxing, and on her back, boxer and Sky over the next 5 or 6 years. There's no ceiling.
Brother and sister running two genders in the sport at the top.
Yeah. There's no ceiling on Caroline Dubois' career. Obviously, she's an interim and fringe world title holder at the moment. I reckon she'll be a full WBC holder by the time she actually gets in the rings to fight. It's up to her. How many weight classes does she want to move through? How many fighters does she want to take on? What's her pace of moving? She's with the McGuigans, so that's something for me I'm glad about with her being with boxing, that she's actually with the McGuigan family. And yes, we have opinions on some of their business dealings in the past, but the way they navigate fighters and maneuver their careers, think of Josh Taylor from 11-0 to when he won the World Boxing Super Series, his opponent's records were something like 292 wins.
Yeah, he had a ridiculous run.
They're doing something similar with Caroline Dubois. Obviously, the caveat is there isn't the same depth of quality at women's boxing at all levels as we've seen in some of her fights. There have been mismatches, but she's a world champion in waiting. She's just waiting for Mauricio to pick up the phone and tell her that she's a full world champion. I mean, he may have already done it and we just don't know yet, but probably the easiest one on the list to answer. Yeah, she'll be a world champion and multiple weights as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think there was it Beatrice Ferreira, her and Dubois, wasn't that one of the purse bid situations again between Boxer and Matchroom, if I remember correctly? But then she went to the Olympics, didn't she, Beatrice? One of the guys in the chat will be able to help me on that, but I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what led to the purse bids being curtailed in the end. For a change, it wasn't Ben losing his wallet or his pen. It was actually the fact that Beatrice went to the Olympics. Obviously, the WBC said, well, we can't sanction this fight if you're planning to go to Paris. I'm pretty sure that's what curtailed that. But I'd still like to see that fight now. I think that's a good test for Caroline. See the level she's showing. Yeah, the level she's showing in all her fights. And I believe she's above Beatrice Ferreira. But it's a fantastic fight to see. It could be her biggest test so far, what would be in her 11th or 12th fight, it wouldn't be a bad time to take it at all, would it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, just to round off Caroline Dubois, because we have a couple more fighters to. Yeah, she did. Luca, I thought that I don't even think she didn't medal. I don't think, did she, or anything like that. It's crazy. That's why Jalalov's achievements at or super heavyweight, is it called, or whatever, the top division in the Olympics. But he's obviously undefeated as a pro and won back-to-back Olympic golds, I think, for Uzbekistan. So, that just goes to show you, because many a pro since the pros have been allowed back in the Olympics have failed, haven't they, at trying to medal or whatever it is. There's a few high-profile pros that have failed to do it. So Jalalov's achievements doing it are absolutely immense. So, yeah, I don't think she did. And Pat's quickly said, the only obstacle I see with Dubois is Ferreira yet. That is hard-hitting woman. Boxer pulled out purse bids, but remains to see what that fight can bring. I remember it happening because Eddie Hearn was talking about it for ages, but it's probably not the fight to be. There you go. Horkan said, yeah, she lost in the second round. Luke said, Horkan said Beatrice Ferreira and Caroline Dubois was ordered for the vacant IBF lightweight. Well, I'd like to see that fight. I hope it happens, but probably at 23 with Boxer thinking it was a bit earlier. What's the point? It's not like it's a Katie Taylor or Serrano kind of name, is it, Beatrice Ferreira? So, probably not that much money in the fight for Dubois or anything at this stage. But, yeah, matter of time, Liam. I've got to ask you the question because this is the format of the show, but it's probably not if, it's how many.
How many weight classes, how many belts, and how quickly she does it for me. She could quite easily go. She's hitting some of these weight divisions at the right time where the current champions, the so-called old guard, are fading themselves out. She's hitting the right times to actually pick up these titles quite easily. Now, that's not me saying that she can't beat other fighters that hold world titles, but she's going to have an easier run of it than perhaps she would do, because there's going to be a lot of vacant titles out here for her to go and pick up if she wants to.
Yeah, definitely. We'll move on from Dubois. David, thanks for joining us. He's not on the list because he's a little bit older than the criteria, but we may as well look at him because David's asked. So, and I like Sam Noakes. I'm really high on him. So we'll quickly look at Sam Noakes, and he's 27 years old, but he is still kind of a prospect, if you want to call it that. He's 15-0, 14 KOs. He was only taken the distance by Ivan Mendy, who's, we've seen him loads of times. He actually gave Luke Campbell his first career defeat, didn't he, Mendy's never been stopped either. I don't think he's an incredibly tough guy, the Frenchman, I think he is. We saw him against Seglia, didn't we? You were there, weren't you, Liam?
I was going to say, I was at the Seglia fight, and I've been a big fan of Sam Noakes anyway, but actually sitting close to the ring as I was at York Hall that night and appreciating his footwork, his movement, his punch selection.
I think he could go all the way, Noakes. I think he's a really good prospect. He hits so hard as well for the weight.
Yeah, I think I think the plan now, obviously, the Chamberlain fight's gone by the wayside after Wembley. It looks like they're going to give Josh Padley the opportunity, which I'm not angry about.
I don't hate it. He deserves it after the Chamberlain
fight. Padley deserves it. And then after that, I reckon, they were talking about Barancic for Mark Chamberlain.
Yes,
I'm sure they can get it for Sam Noakes. He'll be a European champion. He's quite high up with the WBO as well, higher than Mark Chamberlain was when this fight was being talked about. I know that much. So it wouldn't surprise me to see him move towards a world title fight next year. He's got potential. Look, we need to see him in with opponents that can give a little something back.
Yeah, he hasn't fought the level of opposition yet, has he, to be fair. He's European champ now, so, the next stage is world level.
Yeah, Ivan Mendy was a name, but we knew he was probably past his best, so the fact that he lasted the 12 rounds was kind of what we expected Ivan Mendy to do. He was there to last the 12 rounds and give Sam Noakes that experience of an ex-world title challenger who was a known name in the UK. Segula disappointed me. He didn't really...
He offered nothing. He offered nothing.
So Padley will definitely take it. Jesus, I'm not saying Josh Padley is a world-level fighter, but he'll at least give some questions for Sam Noakes to answer, won't he?
Well, he's the undisputed Turkey Aloe Sheikh favourite fighter champion. He's took the lineal status off Mark Chamberlain in his last performance. So
as a belt,
keep an eye out on that. Do you think Noakes is going to be a world champion, Liam?
Yes.
It's hard to say in hindsight, isn't it? Like it's very difficult because you have to think about routes maneuvered more than like.
That's what's going through my head at the moment.
Yeah.
If he gets Barancic and I give him a better chance against Barancic than I would have given Mark Chamberlain. That's what I will say. So if he does get the Barancic fight, I think that's a possibility for him to win it. But I'm not as confident on this one as I am on some of the others. Probably
I
put him in
don't think categorically you can say he's going to be a world champion right now. You need to
he
see.
goes in the maybe category for me.
Yeah, he definitely is in the maybe category. Let's talk now. Then we'll move on to Johnny Fisher. I want to talk about next. He's 25 years old, the Romford Bull. What have you made of his career so far? You know, he's a great ticket seller. You know, he beat Alan Babbage in his last time out. But let's be honest, he's fought a lot of knockovers during his career so far. He's fighting Dave Allen on the Usyk Fury rematch undercard in December. He's being matched quite carefully, I think. Now, you know, you think, and I know he didn't have a stellar amateur background or pedigree or anything like that, but you know, 12-0, 11 stoppages now. You know, 25. He's a baby in the heavyweight division. He looks about 45, but he is 25. So yeah, what do you make of him so far, Johnny Fisher?
Fisher's an interesting one because by his own admission, when he turned over as a pro, he wasn't sure where he could go. I think I found an interview he done right back near the start of his career where he said, if I can get to southern area or English level, I'd be happy. Well, he won the southern area against Henry Armstrong on the Joshua Hellenius card last summer. So he's ticked that off. And look, reality is him against Fabio Wardley next year or for the vacant British title against one of those other heavyweights, if and when Fabio moves on, is probably the right path for him to be going in now. The reality is we still don't know what his potential is. We don't know how far he's going to go. And it's fantastic. He's generating all the hype. He's selling out the copper box. He's got his dad with the Chinese order and he's got everything going and he's marketable. He's a marketing team's dream because you can market so much off of him. But what's his potential as a fighter? I'm not sure. There's still holes in there. Unfortunately, I don't think Dave Allen 2024 version is the one to pick holes in that.
They know that as well. Eddie's protecting his asset as well with Fisher because you know he's a big ticket seller, man. You can put him in against anyone at the copper box, and he's gonna sell it out. And Eddie's not stupid, but Dave Allen is the perfect opponent for him because he's going to run through him. He's going to stop him. But Dave Allen is kind of a name, if you want to call it that, as well. He's well known. It's perfect matchmaking.
Dave Allen, they know what they're doing, giving him Dave Allen. After this, though, I want to see him in at British level. Like I say, we expect Wardley to either defend once more and then move up, or just give it up now, don't we, to move on towards European and world honours.
Yeah.
Johnny Fisher is in that picture, and if you're going to put him in with an Adelaide, with Fraser Clark, if Fraser carry on fighting after he's obviously got over his injury, with some of those fighters, that's what we want to see from Johnny Fisher. My thing with Johnny Fisher is and no disrespect to anyone that wins a regular world title. So like what Rocky Fielding done against Tyrone Zerger out in Germany back in 2018, I can see him possibly winning a regular world title, not a full world title. And that's just how I feel about him. He's fun to watch. I never want to miss one of his fights, but he's not like, you don't look at him as being the next Usyk, do you? You don't think that's the next undisputed king in 2-3 years' time, do you?
No, you're right. Luca's right. And what I was saying before, like Eddie Hearn's definitely going to match Johnny Fisher carefully. There's no way that he's going to fast track. There's no way he's going to do a Frank Warren on Daniel Dubois for Johnny Fisher. Is he put it that way?
Johnny Fisher is one of Eddie's only UK cash cows that he has left at the moment.
Uh-huh.
And because of his fan base, you can put Johnny Fisher in with anyone. And you could announce Johnny Fisher against TBA and he'll sell out the copper box before you announce an opponent. He's got that sort of potential because of his fan base. Eddie will, Luke is right. Eddie will be very careful with him. He's fun. I know you're about to ask me, he's fun, but I don't think he's going to become a full world champion, if I'm being honest.
I completely agree with you. Nothing I've seen yet. And again, he shouldn't be this early on in his career, but I get why he is, because he's being matched carefully and so on and so forth. He's a big ticket seller. If he wasn't a big ticket seller, he'd have been put in harder fights for sure. But based on what we've seen so far, there's nothing that's making you scream out that he's going to be a world champion. And being a world champion at heavyweight right now, with how deep the division is, you have to remember that he's going to be fighting the likes of your Cabiels, your Martin Bacolis, and Daniel Dubois and Hergoviches and people like that. That Joseph Parker. That's who the division's going to be once Fury, Usyk, and everyone else gets out the division. Jared Anderson can come again. These are all people that are going to be at the top of the sport when Johnny Fisher's probably, well, he might not even challenge for a world title, never mind win one. That's how kind of stacked it is. But you can't make a a full-on assessment on it right now, but I'd say no. That would be my personal opinion as well.
Look, I live in Essex now, so I'm in Johnny Fisher's county, and I can't even make an argument for thinking he's going to do it. He's fantastic fun. European, I know this is not the name of the show, European title, I could see him getting hold of. I just think world level would be a step too far, especially with what else we know is coming through on a world scene.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll move on to Dennis McCann. He's obviously got a big fight coming up against Peter McGrail on the same card as Johnny Fisher against Dave Allen. So McCann's 23, 16-0, and he had the draw with Baluta, didn't he? That he's rectified now. He stopped him. Sorry, didn't stop him. He basically stopped him, didn't he? He won on a unanimous decision, but he
dealt with him. Yeah, that was
he destroyed him, didn't he, last time out? So he's beat every man he's ever faced. Dennis McCann. He's got his acid test is coming up, isn't it, in Riyadh on December the 21st. But since he's moved to Joe McNally, I think he's based in Liverpool now. There's been a clear improvement with him, and he's kind of growing up in front of us. And I'm very high on Dennis McCann, actually.
Yeah, mate. One of the first conversations we had was actually about Dennis McCann and where we saw his standing. And for me, he's one of the most exciting prospects in world boxing, not just British boxing here. Dennis McCann had star power just ready to explode onto a bigger stage. And that's obviously what they're hoping is going to happen out in Saudi. It's going to, there'd be the American TV audience there as well. Of course, Turkey will be there. So they're hoping to now show his star power. What I like about Dennis McCann is he's not afraid to admit that he's made mistakes in how he's won fights, in the Baluta draw, etc., etc. He's happy to say, look, I'm still a work in progress. I'm not a finished article yet. And I think Dennis McCann himself, if you ask Dennis McCann tomorrow, do you think you're going to become a world champion? He'd probably say no right now because he's so high on being on the journey and he knows he's still got steps to take. But the reality is, if you were going to draw up off this list 3 guys that are most likely to become world champion, Dennis McCann's in that top 3 for me.
Yeah, definitely. I think he's the one who's, some of them are kind of traveling along at this trajectory at the minute. Dennis McCann's trajectory is straight up. He's vastly improving. I agree with what Pat said here as well. Matchroom, he's talking about loads of signings, Eddie, but he's not actually presenting any. From what I can see, he's maybe some of these GB guys from the Olympics he'll sign on his books, but Lewis
Richardson will go in Matchroom, I imagine. Lewis Richardson's Colchester, which is where I lived for 8 or 9 years. Eddie Hearn's Essex. They know each other anyway. I'd be very surprised if Lewis goes anywhere else other than Matchroom. But if we're honest, it wasn't the greatest crop of British boxers that went to the last Olympics.
One medal, was it?
Yeah, Lewis was the only medal. Lewis was the only one that made out of the round. So there you go.
Definitely wasn't.
Yeah, but going back onto Dennis McCann, he's a boxer, he's a fighter. He gives you the sound bites in interviews. He gets the game. He knows he's got to sell himself. He's played the villain in some of his fights, hasn't he? And he's happy to do that. He doesn't mind what he does. And I just think when the time's right and Dennis McCann gets to be seen on a bigger stage than what he's produced in Britain. So Joyce Chisora was arguably the biggest stage he's been on so far. I think it's 8,000-9,000 in the O2 that night. And he put on a really good performance. As soon as he can do it on a world stage, which is what this Saudi opportunity is, everyone's going to want a piece of him. The Americans, I know you don't have to crack America in the same way as you used to anymore, but the Americans would absolutely lap up someone like Dennis McCann for his boxing ability and his charisma as well.
100%. Before I ask you on McCann whether he'll be a world champion, Lucas asked about Marco Verde. I saw that when Rocky Hernandez fought in Mexico, Eddie was being asked about Verde loads, but I've not actually heard an official announcement. I'll be surprised if he didn't go with Hearn with his presence in Mexico these days. He seems to be trying to build a big Mexican stable, doesn't he? So I'd be surprised if Eddie hasn't put in a very shrewd and solid offer for Marco Verde, to be honest. He was the one who knocked him out, wasn't he? He knocked Lewis. What was his name? Lewis
Richardson. He beat Lewis. He beat him. Split decision.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, you're completely right, mate, and I think Verdi will go with Matchroom because it's probably the most beneficial path for his career. He's not as young as some of the other Olympians are coming through. He knows he needs to move at a fair lick, if that makes sense. And Matchroom, regardless of the problems they're having in the UK, Matchroom is still a solid place to be in North America.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Dennis McCann, will he be world champ?
Yeah, I've said on this list we're going through. He's in my top 3. Dennis McCann to become a world champion, yes. And I will caveat that with, even if he loses to Peter McGrail, I still think he becomes world champion.
Well, he can definitely come again, can't he? If he loses the McGrail fight, let's be honest. Let's commend the matchmaking there. I think at that super bantamweight division, Inouye's undisputed at the minute. By the time McCann's ready to be a world champion, Inoue will be long gone into the sunset, I believe. So, there's going to be opportunities there for sure in the next couple of years, I would say, at 122 pounds. I back Dennis McCann to be a world champion as well at some point. I think he looks special. He really does.
Yes.
Let's move on to the...
Special's the word for him. That's what he is, a special kid.
1,000,000%. We'll just cover two more quickly. Let's go with what happened last weekend. Mr. Adam Azim, 22 years old, super lightweight. Big win against O'Hara Davis last weekend. He's been spoke about with Dalton Smith. He's been European champion already. It's a bit of a shark tank, that 140-pound division. In fairness, I expect Azim to be as high as 154 before his career's out, to be honest. He's pretty big. He's very tall anyway for the weight. What do you think?
I didn't get to give an opinion on Adam Azim last night, obviously missing out on the live, but everyone's gone really high on him again, just like they were when he won the European title against the 43-year-old that hadn't fought in 2.5 years and all of that. But the reality is, he was expected to do that to an O'Hara Davis at the other side of his career. And anyone that wants to say you're an after-timer saying it now, I said similar on my show last week, that you expect a 22-year-old coming through to deal with a 31-year-old or however old O'Hara Davis is. Fight went the way it did. We now need to see the Dalton Smith fight. Then I can answer whether I think he's going to become a world champion, because you can look the most amazing fighter in the world at the level he's been at so far.
Yeah.
But he also looks like he's quite ego heavy is the wrong word, but he looks like he needs his team around him to hype him up and give him the belief a lot. And he gets that quite well from McGuiggans. He's flashy. He's talented. I enjoy watching his fights, but I just don't know if he's got that next step, if that makes sense. That step where
I don't really know what his chin's like.
Nope. Dalton Smith, I know we're not talking about him, but Dalton Smith, I believe, will become a world champion because we know he can box, he can fight, he's got the skills, if that makes sense. Adam Azim, I just don't think he's got that extra bit to make it as a world champion.
Yeah, I agree. Lucas said, agree with Liam, what OD said himself, can't get too excited off the back of that, but he did look good. Yeah, 100%, I agree. I don't think right now I can say Adam Azim's going to become a world champion. And it's probably, again, because, he's 22 and seems weird. I haven't seen enough because he's been a European champion at 22. But, he kind of got the Euro belt, vacated it. And then, you're fighting back down at British level, really, against O'Hara Davis. So, after the Dalton Smith fight, we'll know whether Adam Azim's going to be a world champion or not. It's as simple as that. We're going to get the answers. Well, providing the Dalton Smith fight happens, of course. We're going to get into that tomorrow night on No Punches Paul. We'll have a good debate on Azim against Smith. But, I right now, I have to say no. But, again, these answers are open for change over time.
Yeah, mate, I agree with you. And just going back to the European belt quickly, let's be really honest. If it wasn't a 43-year-old Italian whose name I forget, so someone in the comments... He beat it, who hadn't fought in nearly 2 years and got that fight because he was the former belt holder.
Just a calculated grab of the belt.
Knew exactly what he was doing. And then Enoch Paulson, who was a former European title holder, was never going to be an issue to Adam Azim. He wasn't 100% fit. Yes, Azim was winning the fight, but Paulson's hip dislocated, which is what an injury he'd already had, so he retired from that fight. Everything's been calculated. I would have liked to have seen him fight Dalton Smith with the British and Commonwealth belts on the line as well for the British, Commonwealth and European. That would have been a fantastic fight and would have answered a lot of questions. But I'm the same as you, mate. Right now, I can't say Adam Azim's going to be a world champion. He's a very exciting fighter, but I just don't think he's got that extra bit that you need to see in a fight.
Well, exactly. We haven't seen it yet, so we can't say that he is or he isn't. But again, we'll find out. Lastly, of course, I want to talk about Moses Atalma. Probably hard to say, but I guess the brightest prospect at the moment. Is that fair to say? In British boxing, one of them anyway.
He's the most touted. He's getting the most in this age bracket. He's getting the most hype, isn't he?
Yeah, 19-year-old heavyweight. He's already had 20 fights.
Yeah, WBO international champion. He's top 6 with all the governing bodies. Like, he's in a fantastic place, Moses.
Sorry, he's had 10 fights. For some reason, it pulled up his amateur record. He's 10-0, 8 knockouts. He's got a step up in Saudi on December 21st against Dempsey McKean. I believe he's only lost to Hrgovic, has he? In his final round stoppage.
McKean's only lost to Hrgovic and then hasn't fought since Hrgovic. So, he's coming off the back of what will be a 16-month layoff by the time he gets that fight.
Well, you look at Moses versus Fraser Clark and the demolition job he did on Marius Wack. And Fraser Clark just laboured with him for a 10-round decision or whatever it was. Moses seems to have that X factor about him. I'd be very surprised if he doesn't become a world champion, being how good he is at 19 years old, considering he could probably have another 20 years in the game. We know heavyweights fight. Heavyweights over the last 10 to 15 years, and I'm talking about Usyk, I'm talking about Fury, I'm talking about Klitschko, I'm talking about, they've all dominated in their kind of mid to late 30s. And I know they've been champions before mid to late 30s, but what I'm saying is that, Klitschko was champion up until, 39, 40 or whatever it was before Fury beat him. Usyk and Fury were champions at, Usyk's not 37, 38, is he now or something like that?
Yeah, I think he is, yeah.
So, it's just,
he's 37, yes. Usyk's
37. Fury must be 37 as well. And, these guys are fighting for undisputed and 3 belts in the rematch or whatever it is. I find it hard to, and, it might be a stupid way to look at it, because he might just not have a chin when he gets cracked, or, he might not be. We've seen David Price, many people are saying that he's the future. When him and Fury were coming up together, David Price was the man. He was going to chin Fury and it would have been a mismatch. And then we saw how that story unfolded. So, we can't, just because he's 19 and he looks $1 million doesn't mean that he's guaranteed to do it. But I just feel based on what we've seen so far. And, at the end of the day, if he's going to be fighting Dempsey McKean in his 11th fight, that's a good stepping stone. That's a good mark to see where he's at. I fully expect him to win the fight. But, Frank's not stupid either. Frank's not born yesterday. Frank knows exactly how to navigate a career.
Yeah, he does. And look, everything Moses has done, and yes, you can make the same argument for Adam Azim that you can only beat what's put in front of you. But let's be honest, some of the fighters that Moses Town was beating at 18, 19 years of age, heavyweights that are much older, into their 20s, have struggled to do. Yes, Marius Wack is at the end of his career and he came in at about 21 and a half stone, I think it was, and looked horrendous. Looked like he rolled out of 5 guys straight into the ring. But no one had put Marius Wack away in the second round of a fight before and looked that good doing it. That's a statement. Dempsey McCann, look, not a lot of people gave him a chance against Hrgovic. Everyone knows he's not quite world level. But if Moses goes out to Saudi again and blows him away inside 3-4 rounds, you can't ignore it much longer. And we're having a conversation all the time at the moment because of the IBF and their mad mandatories they're calling about belts becoming fragmented. Bet your bottom dollar, even if Usyk does decide he wants to have a couple more fights after December 21st, if he wins, he'll lose at least one more belt. The WBA will probably get involved and decide they're going to strip him or call a mandatory, because obviously they've got their regular champion in Manuel Shah, so you know what's going to happen there. If Fury wins, I think Fury retires. Moses is in one of the best positions, and Frank has the best relationship with Turkey to make the fights happen. Moses becoming a world champion younger than Mike Tyson, I know it's a big claim, is a realistic possibility with how the heavyweight...
What age is Tyson again? 21? 22?
I think it's 21.
Yeah, with all the fragmenting going on,
that's what I mean.
But, he would have to go through. He'll have to beat a serious fighter either way. There's too many good people in between him and Usyk right now that he would have to go through. Have to go for a hell of a fighter to get there. But I'm not saying that he'll do that. And I worry about his size.
I'm saying you can see it happening.
Yeah, no, by all means. Yeah, I'm worried about his size a little bit heavy. But then again, Usyk doesn't have the size, does he? Not necessarily. Depends what you do with it. But
anytime someone makes that argument to me, the argument back is, well, who's the undisputed champion right now? Look at the undisputed. Like, size does help in heavyweights, but if you have the movement and can box as well as bang, it doesn't matter too much.
Speed is frightening as well.
Yeah. So Mike Tyson was 20 years, 4 months, and 22 days when he won the heavyweight world title.
Okay, so when's Moses? Yeah, I think that's going
I
to
know
be.
it's a long shot. I'm just saying there is still a potential for it. Like he doesn't turn 20 until the 28th of December, so
Yeah, well, that's interesting. You know, I don't know who he's highly ranked with or who he's not, but you know, being a world champion before his 21st birthday, funnily enough, you can't actually rule it out.
no, you
You
can't. That's
honestly
the thing.
can't.
These belts will become fragmented. I think the WBO is the governing body he's highest ranked with. Who's Frank got the best relationship with? The WBO. If that becomes vacant, you could see it being Moses Atalma that's in one of the corners for that
Yeah.
fight for
I
it.
think Parker's WBO number one, is he? Now, I'm not going to lie. I think they would take the Parker fight. He's with Queensbury now, isn't he, Joe Parker?
Parker's WBO interim, so yeah, that must mean he's number one.
Sorry, of course he's WBO interim. Yeah, he beat Zhang. He beat Joyce for it, didn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, no, so yeah, look.
I could see Moses doing a job on Joseph Parker. It's a tough fight. It's a tough fight, and Parker could box him, but and you know, I'm done with underestimating Joseph Parker after his last two fights. But and what? Hang on, I know this is off topic, but what's going on with Joseph Parker?
I was just about to say. Last December he beat Wilder. Then he done in
March he beat Zhang.
And then we've not seen him.
And nothing. He's not scheduled for the Riyadh. He'll fight on a Riyadh season card because that's where he's in. With you stay on, we all know that he's won 2 Riyadh season cards in a row. Where is he? Is he going to be on this February 22nd card that's been spoke about? Obviously, we'll talk about this tomorrow, and we'll see if we can gather some matchups. Min Kim's joined us. Thanks very much, Min Kim. Moses, tremendous talent. He's only fought C-level heavyweights. Agree. He's very young. There's another level before he should fight for a world title. I agree. But like Liam said, if Frank sees an opportunity for him, he'll take it.
Yeah. Look,
it has to be the right middle.
Yeah. What we just go back to Joseph Parker just quickly so I can get this point out. If we don't see Joseph Parker and say he's then announced to be fighting Moses Atalma, I don't like that for him because then he's just had another year or so of inactivity and he's going in against one of the youngest and most hungriest fighters out there. But Lucas said it, the Zhang rematch is what is holding Parker up because
that's right.
Actually, it has to happen. But anyway,
maybe that would be on the February 22nd card. Then it would have to be. He needs to be out, and Kabiel and Bacoli, I'd say, will make its way onto that card. And
yeah, we hope so. Our mate Billy, I know he's put a bit of heat on Ben again today on X, saying make him a fight, make my man a fight. He needs to fight. So we'll see. That relationship is still as strained as ever.
Good old Billy. Lastly, then, mate, Moses Atalma, world champion or not?
Yes.
Resounding yes from me as well. Whether he gets it, in the next couple of years, maybe not. But before he's 25, I think he's got potential to be a world champion for sure.
Absolutely, mate.
But again, you need to know about that chin. It's heavyweight boxing. You just never know. But he just, the way he carries himself feels different, doesn't he?
He's 19, and if you didn't, you look at him, obviously as a specimen, he looks older as 19, but the way, like you say, the way he carries himself, the way he talks in the media, he's very mature head on his young shoulders, which can only help him.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll leave it there for tonight then, Liam. Thanks very much for joining me. Luca, Min Kim, David joined us, DJ Pat, Hawkan, thanks very much for tuning in, guys. We'll be back. Liam is recording his show tomorrow night, obviously previewing Catrell against Prograis. We'll be doing the same straight after he's finished, roughly 7:30 p.m. as usual tomorrow for No Punches Pulled. So hope to see you guys there. We'll get into the nitty-gritty of Adam Azim's performance last weekend as well. We'll talk the potential Dalton Smith fight. We'll look at Catrell Prograis. We'll discuss the February 22nd Riyadh season card that's going to be the best Riyadh season card of them all, just like every other Riyadh season card that's been announced. There's a few other, obviously we'll go a bit deeper on Tim Tszyu and Murtaz Aliyev as well, and what the hell happened there. But yeah, for your Usyk press conference is due to happen on Wednesday, I believe, their first press conference in London, I think I heard earlier. So that's going to be something we can definitely discuss. Pat said that February event is probably more 5v5 and AJV Dubois 2 than anything else. Yeah, do you know what? You're probably right. Actually, it's going to be 5v5, isn't it? So they're in-house fights. Zhang against Parker, that's Queensbury on Queensbury. and Parker and Cabiel and Bacoli wouldn't fall into a match versus Queensbury 5v5. Cheers, Pat. Have a good evening, my friend. Thanks for watching. Yeah,
look,
so
we'll wait and see what happens, mate. There's potential, isn't there? Turkey does what Turkey wants. So if he decides he doesn't want to do the 5v5, and who knows? Who knows what happens there? There's big fights to make, and we love Saudi, but we don't want Saudi to hold up these fights being made either, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And just one more thing that we'll be talking about tomorrow, because it's just come to my mind, and I was not happy about it. If anyone saw my ex earlier, Turkey wants to, or better be Evan Bivol, are talking about taking an interim fight before the rematch, which is absolutely ridiculous. But I'll save that for tomorrow night. I call Adam Azine to a T. Davis is washed up. Yeah, he is, Mickey, definitely.
I'll save my rant on that for tomorrow as well, because you nearly set me off just mentioning it. I tried.
That's a huge talking point. I couldn't believe what I was reading. When you got a nearly 40-year-old man who's riddled with injuries, then you're going to put him through another fight before that. But anyway, we'll get into that tomorrow, guys. Thank you ever so much for watching. As always, Liam, appreciate you hopping on, mate, and we'll